Okay, good. Just as long as I'm not screwing up your lighting.
Y'all are rolling on this 3 o'clock. That's gonna be the stop before. That's why I really like either or. So whichever one y'all pull from that will be it. Hey, I'm up. Okay, cool.
But for those of us who do work Monday through Friday, you gotta love last minute breaking news on a Friday afternoon. Literally.
I'm like, my first race day didn't work out. And then I like pitched the Emerald Isle thing. And then
You get all the way
I
out
got
there.
my interview and I was like headed out there.
Okay.
And then like as soon as I pull into the parking lot, they're
Right.
like, actually we're switching your main story.
Oh, that is a killer.
I was like, it's been 3 different stories today for me. And then I also had to do my post on top of this, so I'm like, I'm all over the place.
Hold on, I'll turn the viewfinder around so I can look.
Yeah, I've been writing like 8
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm talking.
What ended up happening?
I'm here. Check 1, 2, 3. Is it too low? Is it too?
Like the beginning of February. And then Jenny,
Check.
who is our other one, moved back.
1,
in November.
2,
She's trying to
3,
hire
4.
someone. The
A,
we have
B,
interviews,
C,
it's
D
not
for
the one
Derek,
good- or the one
E,
good one
F.
went somewhere else.
Okay, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it
So
up.
frustrating. If it makes you feel any better, so on the weekend we didn't anchor, and for a while we didn't have a report on the weekends. So I would be like,
You the reporter
shooting-
and the anchor?
Yeah, and the producer. So I would literally go out
Hey, you
shoot
have a lot of
like,
experience now.
honestly, it is true, and I had
Yeah.
it forced me to be really, really, really fast producing and reporting. But like you can tell, the days that I did that, like my makeup, my
You're
hair,
like-
it's
It's
awful.
like the last thing on your mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm just trying to
Are you
get
the
air.
morning or the night?
Evening.
Okay. So, I mean, you have like the morning time to like kind of chill out.
Which was nice, yeah. And like sometimes I would come in a little bit early just to give myself like a less of a stressful time,
Right.
like shooting, producing, and anchoring, you know. But I am very thankful we now have a weekend.
You're like blessed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're off like Monday, Tuesday?
I am, yes,
Do you
yeah.
like that? Or-
I do. I love it. I mean, there are some days where I'm like, oh darn, like there's this really cool event on the weekend. Wish I could go.
There's so much stuff going on the weekend. This, like tomorrow, like
Yes.
there's like 700 things. Like our day book is like completely stacked with like 20 stories.
Oh, wow.
Ours too. And I was like talking to our assistant news director. I was like, how are you going to choose what we cover? Because I don't know if it's possible to get to all of them, but most of them, if not all of them, were really good things
Yeah.
too. Like,
There's
you
like
know,
4 things happening in Jacksonville.
the Montfort Point Marines. I
Yeah.
think there's like that
There's a
veteran.
rally for
Yeah.
the
Toxic
yeah,
water
I read a
supplies.
story on that yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, it's
people will
always
reach out to me. Luckily, I don't work weekends unless there's like an emergency. So I'll be like, sorry, I can't. I'll write something before or after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll have to
I always
be
tell
more.
people, I'm like, I'll pass it on for a weekend report.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. Which does help us, I will say, as someone who previously was a weekend reporter.
If we had more people, someone would work on the weekend, or sometimes we'll work ahead and get a story for the weekend. But with just me, I can only do so much.
I think that's what sometimes like is frustrating because like you form connections in the community and then there's like connections they want you to cover certain things and you do want to, but like
I
you know if
feel
it's
so
this
bad.
versus like something else, you know, obviously it takes precedence and you wish you had the staffing to do everything.
Yeah.
I mean our newscast would be so stacked if that was the case.
Yeah.
Also, but
It'd be great.
I mean, it's like, thank goodness when I got to my interview today and I told them, they already seen the notification pop up. They were like, you know, you gotta go back. Like, we'll reschedule for next week.
that's nice.
I was like,
It's so nice when people are understanding. Which I would say most are, I think. There's
Yeah.
like very few cases where somebody's not.
Yeah. My inbox is just email after email. You want to cover this? Want to cover this? Want to cover this?
there's only one of me.
You need like a clone.
People are pretty understanding when you talk about that. I feel like.
Mhm.
At least most of the time.
Yeah, there's like it's like
You
1
work
in
most.
10, maybe 1 in 20
Yeah.
that are like, what do you mean? Can't. Sorry, it's a shooting.
Right. That takes precedent.
Yeah.
I hope they're rolling on this. I'm so scared.
Yeah, see, I'm just live streaming on Facebook and then I'll write something up when I do that.
Yeah. I have to go live at 5 and 6. I'm a little stressed. It's not like Derek there who's a whore. So he's-
Oh, I forgot.
Guess who's leading everything?
My person's don't.
Yeah.
Are you doing live pieces today? Oh,
No, I'm not doing lots of, but they do want it to.
6:30 is
Do you have to do a package too?
Yeah.
You're gonna try to hack it? You're going to lie those odds.
That's a really short
That's why I'm over here just typing away.
Yeah, I've heard TV people are like stressed out all the time. Is that
Oh,
the case?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not, I get stressed, but like, I'm gonna jump in front of the camera, you know, like it's not.
Yeah, you're like stressed, and then you have to like worry about your parents, and then go on camera and say
Yeah,
things. And if you say
exactly.
something wrong, then it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like my stuff takes longer, which can be a blessing and a curse. Because sometimes I'm like, I can't get it done fast enough, but then you guys are like, you can't get it done fast enough.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
the worst part, yeah, like getting in front of the camera, and then like you can't go back once you say something.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's like the worst.
Gosh. I get so many emails, can you change this?
Oh, thank you. It's definitely spam.
I'm like, I think you're getting a call. You are getting a call. Otherwise, I think.
I actually do that a lot. I was like, oh.
Maybe it's because we want to like, you know, like protect our butts if like we say something wrong. I think that's what's happening.
I think you're right, actually. I think that is like a defense mechanism.
Just to protect ourselves.
Just in case.
I think your phone might be
This is
ringing.
unconfirmed, however.
Officials have not confirmed
Yeah.
that Wade's phone is ringing. I just like fixed my Apple Watch after not having it for like at least like 8 months, and I love it.
I
Like
feel naked without mine because then I can walk away with my phone and not miss something.
yeah, because I'm just like always like checking it now. I'm like, love it.
I think I need to get one. I feel like
You
I'm one of the
need
only
one.
people. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
You would really like it.
I really think I would, and I'm like, I do get paranoid. I mean, I think all of us as reporters, you do.
Yeah.
If I'm away from my phone for more than like 15
That
minutes,
call you
like,
waited on for like an hour,
Oh, yeah.
you walk away, then you get it.
It's always that. Like, I'll be like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go run in, go to the bathroom, come back out, and it's like 5 missed calls.
Yep. I always tell my
Like,
boyfriend, as soon as I
yeah.
go to the bathroom, they're gonna call me.
They always wait until like you're literally like out of the room, or like you like something you're interviewing someone else. That happens to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
you're interviewing
yeah.
someone else, I'm gonna call you like.
And it all like
I'll try to
happens
send
at,
them
like,
a text if it's like a textable number. I'd be like, hey, you're gonna have to wait a minute. And they're gonna be like, you have me all day to call you, and I can cancel.
And all these wires everywhere. I'd like to welcome you to the press conference where we'll talk about the child exploitation case. On April the 28th, 2022, approximately 8 p.m., the Jacksonville Police Department received information that a school teacher, Stephen Barra, had set up a secret recording device in his classroom at New Bridge Middle School. Detectives responded to the school, and with the assistance of the Onslow County School, several items of evidence were collected. A search warrant was executed at his residence, and another item of electronic evidence was seized. Detectives are now in the process of examining the content of these seized devices from the residents in the classroom. They are working to identify potential victims. At this point in the investigation, there is no evidence that there has or been found to support that any physical contact between Stephen Barra and students of New Bridge Middle School occurred. The Jacksonville Police Department is working closely with the Onslow County School Systems. Brent Anderson is here from the school system to ensure the safety of the students. We have crisis counselors on staff, and the school system has crisis counselors on staff, and they're available to speak with anyone who's been affected by this incident. The Jacksonville Police Department is working closely with the District Attorney's Office in order to identify the appropriate charges in this case, and we do anticipate additional charges would be obtained. So now I'd like to introduce our District Attorney, Ernie Lee, who will talk about the criminal charges.
Thank you, Chief. Again, my name is Ernie Lee. I am the District Attorney for the 5th Prosecutorial District, that is Onslow, Sampson, Duplin, and Jones counties. First of all, I was contacted this morning by the Superintendent of the Onslow County School System indicating that there was an individual, a teacher, that was being investigated. At that time, I subsequently had contact with the Jacksonville Police Department this morning, got additional information about that, and then had additional contact with the Jacksonville Police Department about this press conference. In terms of the charges in this, in North Carolina, we do have a statute, it's GS 14-202. The subtitle, the title of that statute is secretly peeping into a room occupied by another person. Actually, that statute, though, in fact, covers several different things involving secret peeping. The statutes that appear to be applied here are going to be under subsections F and G. That will be any person who, for the purpose of arousing or gratifying the sexual desire of any person secretly or surreptitiously uses or installs in a room any device that can be used to create a photographic image with the intent to capture the image of another without the consent. It is a Class I felony in the state of North Carolina. Subsection G of that statute of GS 14-202 indicates that any person who knowingly possesses a photographic image that the person knows or has reason to believe was obtained in violation of this section shall also be guilty of a Class I felony. The individual has been charged with several of these offenses under F and G. At this point, the magistrate will set the appropriate bond. At that point, we will be waiting for law enforcement reports from the Jacksonville Police Department. I will have this case assigned to an assistant district attorney. I will review the reports myself, though. In addition to that, I will then follow up with the assistant district attorney, and then we will have this case proceed to the criminal justice system.
Good afternoon. I'm Brent Anderson, the Chief Communications Officer for Onslow County Schools. The safety and security of students in the Onslow County school system is our highest concern. The thoughts and prayers of everyone with OCS goes out to all who have been impacted by the events which have resulted in the arrest of former teacher Stephen Barra. The Onslow County school system maintains high standards for all our employees, and Mr. Barra's actions stand in stark contrast to our expectations. Mr. Barra's arrest came following an investigation into information shared with school administrators earlier in the evening that he was secretly video recording students in his classroom. A report was immediately made to the Jacksonville Police Department, and school and district staff assisted law enforcement in their investigation. News of Mr. Barra's arrest was shared with NBMS staff this morning prior to the start of school. A call notifying parents was sent from the principal at 9:30 a.m., and a school-wide announcement was made informing students of the situation and letting them know extra support would be available for students and staff. Additional district staff and members of the OCS Student Services team are on site at the school today and will be there as needed to provide support during this difficult time. Mr. Barra has resigned his teaching position, surrendered his teaching license, and is no longer employed with the Onslow County school system. He began his employment with OCS in 2007 as a language arts teacher at Hunters Creek Middle School. He also worked at Northwoods Park Middle School, Onslow Virtual School, and most recently, Newbridge. District staff have contacted administrators at these schools to make them aware of his past employment history and will be cooperating with the investigation. Anyone with information is asked to contact the JPD Criminal Investigations Division, Detective Stitz, at 910-938-5039 or Crime Stoppers at 938-3273. And families of any students identified as being involved will be contacted specifically by investigators. OCS Superintendent Dr. Barry Collins praised the quick action by school and district administrators and our partnership with the Jacksonville Police Department and others who have been involved in the investigation. Newbridge and OCS staff will be working closely with Jacksonville Police Department and other officials as they continue their investigation.
I guess, are there any questions?
I do have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
The release of the, and again, you mentioned, Chief Yaniero, that the Jacksonville Police Department did receive information about the recording device. Can you explain exactly what the device was? Was it a video camera, and how you received that tip?
Well, I mean, that's all part of our investigation. but it was a video device that's designed to look like something else. So it wasn't a video camera or anything else, and it'd be premature for me to kind of discuss that process that we went through in order to obtain those devices.
So Chief, where were the cameras found, and do we know where they were positioned in the classroom at that time?
Well, that's part of the investigation, but we do have a lot of the video images. We've been going through those images for most of the day. There's a lot of images for us to look at. The images fit that statute because they show students in various stages of undress. And so we'll continue to look at those videos. We've reached out to some of our ICAP partners, and they're helping us go through the data that we have within the devices that we've seized last night.
So when you seized them last night, where were they seized from?
Well, we issued a search warrant for Mr. Barrett's home. Some of them were seized there, and some of them were seized at the school.
And I heard you said with undress. Is it safe to say that these were, I guess, suspected to be used for arousal purposes? I know that's something we hinted at with the district attorney's statement, but is that safe to assume just based off of what we know right now?
Well, obviously, probable cause was determined to do that. So, based upon the statutes.
Do you know at this time any reason why students would have been undressed in his classroom?
Well, I think that's part of our investigation because it's just not one incident, so there's multiple incidents, and that's going to take us some time to go through the data and to look and to identify the students and to make sure that we've found every victim and make sure that every victim gets treatment, whether it's through the school system's crisis counselors or the Jacksonville Police Departments or the Child Advocacy Center, to make sure that we treat these victims with the services that they deserve.
And does Mr. Vera have any history of any sort of this kind of behavior or criminal background of any kind?
I don't know at this particular time if there's been anything like that. So,
do we know how long he was recording students?
Again, I mean, we actually worked through the night to get all this data, so it's going to take us some time before we determine the extent of how long he's been doing this.
So, Chief, when we found these devices, were they in a locked room? Were they in a secure place in the home when they were found?
Well, I think that's part of the investigation, and we'll continue to do that. We're early in the investigation, so again, we don't want to jeopardize the investigation in any way. So that's part of our investigative process.
So one of the questions I guess will follow that is, and maybe this might be a better answer for the district attorney, but we're talking about counts here. How many counts is he facing here on different charges? And I guess what are some potential charges that he could also be brought up on, just depending on how things go?
So there were 10 charges: secretly using or installing a photographic image. That's North Carolina General Statute 14202F. That's 10 counts. And possessing photographic images from peeping is 14202G, and there's 10 counts of those. So those are victims that we've identified now. We'll continue our investigation, and if there are additional criminal charges, we'll file those as we go through all the evidence that we've seized.
Now, you mentioned there's no concern at this point that he had any physical contact with the students, but is there any concern that these recordings could have been shared anywhere? Say,
I didn't say that. I said there was no evidence.
No evidence.
No evidence. So, but it's very important for us for parents to ask their students if they had any physical contact, and for them to disclose that, whether they disclose it to them or they disclose it to a law enforcement officer, their school resource officer. So that's part of our investigation. So it's very important that if a student had some type of relationship, that they come forward and tell us, just like it is every day of the week. So we want to encourage anybody that has any information at all to come forward. This time we have no evidence, but that doesn't mean that there isn't evidence out there and it doesn't exist. And that's part of the investigation. Again, we're less than 24 hours into this situation, and it'll take us several weeks to put everything together.
And does that answer apply as well to a potential concern about it being shared? Is there any evidence to suggest that? Is that part of your investigation?
That's part of our investigation, but if anyone has any evidence to show that any of these images were shared, please come forward and let us know, because that's important to our investigation, because that will change some of the criminal charges. And we need to know that as soon as possible so that we can track anything down that, any potential, any other potential criminal charges.
Chief, is Mr. Vera still currently in custody? Has he been released on his bond, or what's kind of the status?
So he was released last night on a $25,000 bond, but he is back in jail on the 19 counts. He was charged with 1 count last night, and he was charged just recently with the other 19 counts. As far as I know, he's still at the magistrate's office being processed, and so that'll be between the magistrate and the courts as to what his bond will be.
So, Brent, I have a question for in terms of the school system. As we kind of see this incident, happening and unfolding, I guess, really quickly, does this kind of bring a point of question, I guess, with this and previous recent past, accidents that have happened or situations that have happened? Does this bring a position to the school system to reassess background checks or reassess, the thoroughness of follow-ups with teachers throughout the course of a school year or a term? I mean, obviously, he may not have started his career with any problems, what have you, but things change, people change over time.
Well, I think the speed with which this was addressed is a testament to our staff and our relationship with law enforcement, that it was able to be taken care of, it was found out about, and addressed immediately. In terms of the background checks, every employee with Onslow County Schools goes through an initial background check with the FBI and SBI. So that is the initial thing before they're even hired with us. And there was nothing that would have indicated anything at the time of his hire that there was anything that would keep him from being hired by Onslow County Schools. What we do now is we have a process in place where we do keep monthly checks on employees that are currently employed with Onslow County Schools through a service that the school system subscribes to. And that gives us any information. If somebody gets arrested, it pops up, then we're notified that we have that. So we have a lot of safeguards and systems in place that would let us know if somebody had been arrested or if there had been any other kind of charges or anything had come up in the criminal justice system that would have notified our employees and with HR.
And I think the follow-up question I would have to that is just, you might have mentioned it earlier when you gave your statement, but have these parents that have students at the school been notified just in general, and then if we know of any specific students, have those parents also been notified as well?
We haven't identified that I know of any specific students. The notifications that were made today were made school-wide, so we let everybody know. In the middle school, there was a lot of interaction with other students outside of his specific classroom and grade level, so there were a lot of people that needed to be notified, and we felt it was most appropriate to make a school-wide notification to let the whole school community know what was going on.
And Brent, has ever before another faculty member, student, parent ever brought any concern regarding Vera to the school district or the principal?
I think that's going to get more into the investigative part of it about what that will look like, but I can say I'm not aware of anything that would have indicated that this was a behavior that we would have seen.
For students who were directly impacted as you're identifying victims, what is now in their future in terms of schooling? Will they get a break from school if they need to, an option to go virtual? I know you, of course, mentioned that there will be counselors for that, but if some of them don't feel comfortable coming back to school right away, do they have the option to stay at home?
Well, what we would do in any cases like that is work with the individual families and do what is going to be in the best interest of the student. And if it means a temporary virtual placement because they're working through what's happened with this situation, then we would certainly work with families as much as we can to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of the kids.
Chief, one more, just to reiterate, did we have any indication as of now as to why these students would have been in undress in a classroom, a traditional classroom setting? I mean, I understand gym class, that's one thing, but this, to our understanding, he was a traditional teacher, correct?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's part of the investigation, and what we're doing is we're working through the investigation at this particular time. So I think it's kind of premature to talk about that at this particular juncture. But again, I would emphasize, if there's anything, if people have had any inappropriate contact with Mr. Barra, any other students, please contact the Jacksonville Police Department as soon as you can.
I mean, the district attorney's office is going to work with the Jacksonville Police Department as well as the Onslow County School System on this. One of the things we're going to try to determine is, first of all, whether or not there was any type of actual touching of any student. If so, along with the Jacksonville Police Department, we will address that in the appropriate charges. In addition, we're going to look to see if there's any type of dissemination, because that is also a criminal offense in the state of North Carolina. Again, working with the Jacksonville Police Department, if we make that determination, then we'll charge appropriately.
Is there any concern if he has children with his own children? Is that part of an investigation you all are looking into?
Well, in cases like this, obviously we refer those to DSS, but yes, it is. Obviously, we want no children in our community to be taken advantage of, and this was definitely inappropriate. And so we're going to continue our investigation. If we find out anything else, then obviously we're going to take appropriate action.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, some of these circumstances.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you, okay?
Yes, please, let me know your way. I'm like a blockade over here.
Spend more time putting this stuff up and taking it down than you do anything else, right?
I think we